I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk, 1580.
Governor Greg Abbott today escalated his challenge of President Biden's border policies by signing a measure that allows the state from Mexico without legal authorization, setting the stage for a showdown with the federal government. Abbott pushed for the legislation, which passed in a special session of the Republican-dominated state legislature last month, over the strong objections of Democrats, immigrant rights groups, and Hispanic organizations who argued that the measure violated the U.S. Constitution and would encourage racial profiling. A jury on Friday ordered Rudolph Giuliani to pay $148 million to two former Georgia election workers who said he had destroyed their reputations with lies that they tried to steal the 2020 election from Donald Trump. Judge Howe of the Federal District Court in Washington had already ruled that Giuliani had defamed the two workers, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. The jury had been asked to decide only on the amount of the damages. More on that jaw-dropping jury verdict later in the show. And Representative Matt Gaetz, you remember him? He has joined the chorus of prominent politicians calling on Republican Party of Florida, the Republican Party, to calling on the party to really force the resignation of its chair, Christian Ziegler. Ziegler was caught in a three-way sexual encounter. He and his wife admitted to a three-way sexual encounter with a woman who has now accused him of rape. The party on Sunday declared this embattled chairman, Christian Ziegler, unfit for office, and they stripped him of his authority while cutting his $120,000 salary to $1. Payback, retaliation, and revenge. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton now believes he's bulletproof, and his financial backers are pouring money into campaign accounts for candidates challenging Republican state representatives who voted to impeach Ken Paxton. And Ken Paxton just may be running for governor or senator since he has proven an ability to withstand the impeachment effort. 3 Israeli hostages who were shot and killed by Israeli forces in Gaza on Friday were bearing a makeshift white flag. This is according to the military on Saturday, asserting that the soldiers had violated the military's rules of engagement. The Israeli military announced the accidental killings on Friday, hours after saying it had recovered the bodies of 3 other Israeli hostages in Gaza. Criticism of how Israel is conducting the war has grown in recent days after its military acknowledged that it had killed these 3 hostages accidentally. Now, after 3 years of President Biden's quiet man at the Pentagon, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, being quiet about the Israeli conflict, he is actually in Tel Aviv today with a stern and blunt message for Israel. And that message is that they could face strategic defeat, that is Israel, if it does not procure a more selective way to engage in the conflict, one that does not continue to kill innocent civilians. And America's second largest Protestant denomination is in the final stages of a slow motion rupture that has so far seen the departure of a quarter of its churches. Roughly 30,000 United Methodist churches, according to the denomination's news agency, have opted out of the larger organization. In 2019, the Methodist leaders opened a window for any congregation to leave over reasons of conscience, and in most cases, allowing them to take their property and assets with them in a clean break. And most of this has to do with those congregations that want to recognize gay marriages and to allow gay priests to serve in the ministry. And speaking of the ministry and religion, Pope Francis has taken one of the most concrete steps in his efforts to make the Roman Catholic Church more welcoming to LGBTQ Catholics by allowing priests to bless couples in same-sex relationships. This was just announced by the Vatican today. Priests have long blessed a wide variety of people and even objects like boats, offering a prayer asking for God's help and presence. But the Vatican has previously argued against blessing same-sex couples. A busy news day today. And this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trendy news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I am joined by some brilliant contributors, Chris Scott and Dr. Carlos Hill. And in hour two, you know what we do. We go deep and we dig behind the headlines, and we bring you those stories that people are talking about. And the biggest news over the weekend was that $148 million jury verdict against disgraced Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Now, in the law, we call that a nuclear verdict. Rudy Giuliani is going to have to face the music, and it is two African-American women who are bringing him to his knees, and I do mean literally to his knees. A lot of speculation about what Rudy Giuliani will do now. Will he file for bankruptcy? What efforts will he make to try to avoid, because we know he is not going to go freely in terms of helping to do anything that would make these women whole. So to talk about in hour two, what are the options that Rudy Giuliani has? What does this nuclear verdict say about the criminal RICO case pending against Giuliani in Georgia? And what does this say about all of the folks who align themselves with Donald Trump, folks like Rudy Giuliani, who was once thought of as America's mayor? What does this say about him, given this turn of events in this defamation case? So stick around for hour two, because we're going to go in on the Giuliani verdict. But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking in real time. You probably have gotten the news that Jonathan Majors, who was once considered one of Hollywood's fastest rising stars, has been found guilty on misdemeanor domestic violence charges. We know that even before the jury verdict was in for Jonathan Majors, many brands, many projects that he had in the works had been cut. We know that he lost his agent, his manager, and folks in Hollywood started to walk away from him. Now, after this 6-person jury in Manhattan announced its verdict today, Marvel Studios has also parted ways with the actor. We're hearing that information from a spokeswoman for the company. We know that Marvel was looking to write several sequels to the Marvel Empire, movies where Jonathan Majors would have starred, where he would have made hundreds of millions of dollars given the success of the Marvel Empire. And now the studios is walking away from him. Now, it's interesting when you look at what the jury did in this case. They actually acquitted Jonathan Majors on 2 counts, and these were the counts that required the prosecutors to show that he had acted intentionally. But they being the jurors, found him guilty on the 2 other charges. They found him guilty of reckless assault and harassment. And this all came after a 2-week trial in which we didn't see Jonathan Majors himself take the witness stand. We did hear from his ex-girlfriend, 30-year-old Grace Jabari. She gave very tearful testimony about what happened in an SUV back in March of this year. They were driving on a Manhattan street, and she says she saw a text message come over his phone. It was from another lady. She grabbed the phone from his hands. She said he then tried to grab it back, and in doing so, twisted her arm and actually hit her in the head. Apparently, she gets out of the vehicle. We have videotape of him trying to put her back in the vehicle. And then there's this bizarre video where he's literally running down the streets of Manhattan and she's chasing him. I talked about this case on CNN last week before the verdict came in. It was my guess at that time that he would be found guilty. It didn't say specifically which of the 4 charges, but the evidence that was presented at trial was pretty damning, and he did not take the witness stand, which is every defendant's right not to do so. And his failure to do so should not ever be held against him or any defendant. But we do know that a woman taking the witness stand, particularly in this era of Me Too, and crying and tearfully talking about domestic violence. And then we heard an audio, very damning audio, where Jonathan Majors is berating his ex-girlfriend for coming home, maybe a little tipsy, really berating her for not living up to the standards that he believed a great man like himself, his words, not mine. What a partner to a great man like Barack Obama, Dr. Martin Luther King. He compares himself to them and tells her she needs to be more like Michelle Obama and Coretta Scott King. And we just learned a lot from that audio, that Jonathan Majors had some issues with his own self-worth, his self-value. And he expected this woman to act in a way that would affirm what he thought to be the pedestal that he should be placed on. Then there were some disturbing text messages where apparently she had been injured by him, and he was imploring her not to go to the emergency room, because if she did, there would be an investigation and he would, somehow have to be held accountable. Text messages where he's threatening after one of their fights to commit suicide. Her testifying about how he manipulated, controlled her, and physically abused her, including throwing objects at her head. And I mean, the testimony was horrible. Absolutely, positively horrible. We do know that Jonathan Majors himself then went to the police department and filed charges against her and claimed that she was the aggressor and the one that had attacked him in that March incident. Apparently, one police officer might have believed his version, but the case didn't go very far. A lot of issues about race in this case. His team brought up the issue of race, called Jabari a liar throughout the trial, and definitely in their closing arguments, saying that she knew as a white woman that she could call the police and the police would believe her over a Black man. So a lot of complicated issues in this case. Jonathan Majors clearly is facing an uphill battle in terms of his career. He faces up to 1 year in jail for this conviction, although as a first-time offender, not likely that he will serve any jail time, but trying to rehabilitate his image, his reputation, trying to divorce himself from other allegations that he's had a history of violence dating back to college. I don't wish this man, this actor, any harm. I hope that, he gets help. I hope that he addresses whatever issues that he has. I just think that folks need to learn that it is a new era. I've been doing harassment cases, sexual assault, domestic violence for a long time as a lawyer, and there has been a sea shift change in the way these cases are prosecuted by prosecutors and the way juries see these cases. And I just, say to any woman in a violent or, relationship where you are being battered, please seek help, try to get out of it, because domestic violence is no joke. It's the most, talk about intimate violence. Women are most likely to die from an intimate partner violence in any other way in this country. 1 in 3 women are physically or sexually assaulted in their lifetime. So the stats are horrible. And I hope that Jonathan Majors gets help. I hope that he can work again. I don't think anyone should be barred from working for the rest of their lives because of a mistake they make. He obviously is guilty. He's got to deal with that. But there's no happy ending to this story. Lots of issues, but no happy ending. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on Unapologetically Progressive KBLA.
We are back, and in this hour, Dr. Carlos Hill and Carlos and Chris Scott are here helping us break down today's news. I want to just ask both of you your reactions to this news that Jonathan Majors was found guilty on 2 of the 4 counts involving domestic violence today in this Manhattan court. It's been a 2-week trial. We've heard, as I said, some pretty damning evidence. There were some who thought that there was enough evidence of doubt about the story or the claim that his ex-girlfriend made, particularly given that the driver who was in the vehicle at the time, state believed that it was the girl money that maybe would have caused jury that there wasn't guilt on the part of Jonathan Majors. But let me start with you, Chris. What do you think about this jury verdict?
Well, I mean, it's not completely surprising to me. I've seen a lot of kind of mixed reactions to the overall verdict. I think, some really pointing and looking at Jonathan Majors' lawyers from the entire case and just how they feel like they didn't do a good job defending him in the first place. But I think what came out in this—
Let me ask you that, Chris, the comments you've seen in that regard, what didn't they like that the lawyers did?
Well, I think they didn't feel like they actually argued to the case, especially when the new evidence got presented with the recording and everything else. They allowed this case to spiral and become about his entire past and then sticking to the issues of the fact. But still the facts are Jonathan Majors definitely is someone that should definitely seek some help going forward. I think, overall, there's a lot of conflicted feelings because I do like him as an actor, and I think we were just really all starting to get introduced. But this type of behavior is also intolerable, and so you hope that he does some work on himself and gets another chance, and hopefully learns a lot because there's a lot of lessons I think for him to take from this in general.
Absolutely. What about you, Professor? How are you feeling in this moment about this verdict?
I would say, as someone who is a fan of the movies that he's been in and the work that he was building, just disappointed. You always wonder what people are, how they are in their private lives. Are they as, are they as warm and as charismatic as they present themselves when they are selling films or when they're in films? And so it's just disappointing to me. And also, given what you described, the things that you articulated in terms of what he actually did, what's documented that he did, to insinuate, that somehow or another the race of his victim is why he's in this position or why he's, that's also a little hard to hear, even though we want him to come out of this better, hopefully. It's hard to hear that when there's so much evidence that shows that he really was abusive. He really was doing things that we say, you need some help. So don't throw in that history of true terrorism.
It's kind of funny, Doc. Let me ask you this. The race was used in a really interesting way in this case because his defense team used race to say this white woman knew that by calling the police that she would be believed over him and that the police would arrest him. And she was purposely trying to get back at him because she was scorned about this other woman. And this was retribution. And race came into play through those text messages because he was telling her, as a Black man, don't call the police on me because the kind of reaction the police would have. So he was using race as a part of what appeared to be this whole manipulation thing, like, if I hit you, you can't go to the hospital because they're going to ask you questions, and that as a Black man, they're going to believe you over me. So race got, I didn't like race, how they were both playing with race.
Yeah, but also Jonathan Majors in particular, we know that connected to the allegations of white women and Black men is a history of racial terror, and the ways in which one is using that to shield oneself from real nasty behavior. That's the problem. And so I want to hope that all of the things that has been laid on the table, he comes out of this understanding just how horrific what he's done and just how bad he has looked in this process. But at any rate, it's left me disappointed, Areva.
Yeah, what do you, Chris, make of Megan Good, who's going through her own breakup or been through her own breakup with Devon Franklin, showing up in court? Apparently his new girlfriend, they're dating, and a lot of people reacted to her presence there.
Yeah, I gotta think this.
What do you think about that, Chris? What was your reaction when you saw Megan?
I gotta think this isn't the greatest look for Miss Good at this time. I mean, you just look at coming out of the marriage that she came out of, even though they say it's an amicable split, just how people were seeing her. And now you go to Jonathan Majors, and now he gets convicted. And she was already taking flack for just showing up by his side. So, I think you don't know what happens in people's personal lives, what's real and what is sometimes a publicity stunt. And so, I think it's just one of those things. If they went on the girlfriend thing, you hope that she's with him a little bit longer through whatever help he is surely going to have to seek out before he returns to any prominent roles.
Yeah, a lot of healing hopefully gets done or accomplished, all the way around. Miss Jabari obviously has some healing to do, having been in an abusive and manipulative relationship. Jonathan Majors, a lot of healing, a lot of work. Hopefully he does. And, I don't want to see someone's entire career. The man's 31 years old. He got a whole lot of living to do, a whole lot of acting left to do. And I hope that he can take this moment and reflect, do whatever take his punishment, whatever that's going to be from the criminal justice system, get the mental health that he obviously needs, and come back strong as an actor. I hope that happens in this case. When we come forward, more of today's breaking news right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, ma.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to the Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on the Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union. Weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time. That's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice, and injustice. The courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head. Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out.
We are back, and in this hour, we are tracking today's breaking and trending news with Chris Scott and Professor Carlos Hill. In hour two, we're going to be talking about that nuclear verdict against disgraced Mayor Rudy Giuliani, $148 million, and a new lawsuit that has been filed against Giuliani. Don't want to miss hour two and find out who now has sued him, the disgraced mayor, and what they are claiming and what this all could mean for Giuliani's federal, his criminal RICO case is pending in Georgia, and other actions we know are out there. So make sure you stick around for hour two. But Chris, let me ask you about this call for Democrats are calling on Clarence Thomas to recuse himself from hearing the case involving Donald Trump and the lawsuit that's the action moving against Donald Trump, his claim of presidential immunity. Now, we know Clarence Thomas has not been one to recuse himself in prior cases. What do you think the justice does in this case?
Well, I mean, I think at this point it's more ceremonious that the Democrats are calling for this because Clarence Thomas is still the Clarence Thomas he has always been. And so even though he should recuse himself, I think I would be very surprised to see him actually do so at this point in his career. And really, when you just look at what has mounted for the justice over the last several years, you would really hope that you wouldn't have to see him that much longer on the Supreme Court. Certainly, I don't think he should hold that seat anymore from the number of contradictions and compromising positions he's put himself in over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I wish that the Senate had more teeth in terms of more ability to cause someone like Clarence Thomas to recuse himself. I agree with you, but I think the pressure, the continued pressure from the media and from Democrats and just Democrats around this country, we should not let up on Clarence Thomas because his behavior is abhorrent. And he has proven himself unfit to be on the Supreme Court. I was reading an article about his financial woes and how he got himself into this situation where, you know, he literally is taking these huge gifts, expensive gifts from these billionaire donors who also find themselves with matters before the Supreme Court. So we'll continue to watch that. I do want to ask you, Professor, about this Republican chairperson of Florida. So here you have Christian Ziegler. His wife is one of the founders of Moms for Liberty, this really aggressive mothers group that started going into the school board meetings throughout Florida became somewhat of a juggernaut organization very quickly, so much so that over the summer, Republicans running for president had to come to their conference and kiss their rings. They grew very rapidly, had hundreds of chapters all over the country, started playing in politics, endorsing candidates, not just school board candidates. So, holding themselves out as this upstanding couple, and then it all comes out. Everything gets exposed. The husband and the wife are involved in some kind of three-way tryst. They apparently were headed over to the third woman's house. She learned that the wife wasn't coming. She tried to cancel. She says the husband came anyhow and raped her. We got calls from Republicans for him to resign as chair of the Florida Republican Party. Folks associated with Donald Trump were encouraging him not to resign. And finally, so much pressure, he was stripped of his duties, essentially, censured over the weekend, salary taken down from $120K down to $1. But, what do you make of this scandal? You got the wife, who's the, founder of Moms for Liberty, and you got the husband trying to save his job. He started begging, saying he could bring donors. If you don't fire me and let me stay in the job, I'll go raise money for you. What do you make of this couple?
Mm-hmm. I think it's reflective of the party. I don't think it's reflective of I think it's reflective of the party. I mean, we have Matt Gaetz, who has had scandal. We have President Trump. We have Rudy Giuliani. We just got through talking about Clarence Thomas. I mean, corruption, graft, misappropriation, just general chaos is what has defined Republicanism since Donald Trump. And all of this, I mean, I don't know why it doesn't give Republicans pause. Like, Moms for Liberty is a group that has had as much power as the RNC in Florida, and that's where the Republican Party is. That's the center, groups like that, and this is the kind of thing those groups often are engaged in. And so, to me, it's emblematic of kind of where the political culture is in the Republican Party.
Yeah, the hypocrisy, Chris. So Moms for Liberty became known for supporting policies banning books it deemed pornographic, and curtailing the teaching of LGBTQ issues. Also, obviously, race was at the top of their hit list as well. But here you have these three people. Now, what people do in their private lives, hey, their business, right? But you're going around trying to ban books that you deem pornographic. And I'd venture to say these threesomes that they're conducting with this woman who's now accusing, the husband, Christian, of rape, I would deem that some of that conduct would qualify as pornographic conduct. I mean, so I guess what's so galling to me is the hypocrisy of the party and how they are able to convince people that they are still the party, of morals and values.
Well, I mean, I think it starts with we always talk about Democrats don't lean in and talk about the stuff that we know is problematic. It might last one news cycle, but we really don't hit them over and over the way that they hit us over and over once we make one single mistake. I mean, you look at even Congressman Bowman pulling the fire alarm, or the recent scandal that happened in the Senate with somebody having sex. They don't let that go with the bum, but we don't do the same. And, it is very laughable when you think about the fact that one of the people involved is one of the co-founders for Moms for Liberty. And, she didn't want to give up her chair, but, you also got to think about Moms of Liberty and what they at least try to say they stand for. Of course, they're not going to let you stay in that seat. And so I think it's interesting that Matt Gaetz also called this out because you never see him doing that. I gotta think he's thinking bigger picture, long term of governor or Senate in Florida somehow. But you know, in looking at who didn't call out for Trump, I mean, are you really surprised? This Donald Trump inner circle doesn't want the person accused of rape to step down. I mean, look at what's happening to the entire inner circle right now, from RICO cases to their own transgressions for harassment on multiple counts for most of them.
Yeah, you know that what the irony, right? The Donald Trump circle is saying, no, hang in there, don't resign, don't resign. The man's been accused of rape. I mean, there can be nothing more egregious, I guess, in our criminal justice system other than murder. And maybe they're, you know, twin brothers or twin sisters, but yet they're saying, it's okay, just stay in the office, it's okay. And the guy is saying, let me buy myself, you know, my position. I'll go out and raise lots of money if you just let me stay in the position. No sense of obligation to the people, no sense of what it means to be in those positions of power. Yeah, it's a party gone amok. And you're right, Chris, we need to call it out and talk about it more because we know the Democrats are frequently, you know, we stay away from this stuff. And obviously you want to be talking about policy, right? But sometimes you got to fight fire with fire. And if that's what the other side is talking about, you got to remind people, because people will still get very self-righteous with you about Republicans being the you know, party of morality. And we have to remind them that that is so far from the truth. If that was ever true, and I doubt if it was ever true, but to the extent it was ever true, it clearly is not true today. And we have the receipts to prove it. I mean, example after example after example. When we come forward, I want to talk about this fight of our lives that minority-owned businesses are in. The Minority Business Development Agency, which is a part of the Commerce Department, is under siege over the assumption ingrained in our Constitution, in our policies, that certain racial and ethnic groups are inherently disadvantaged. White business owners are...
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to the Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on the Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Cordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union. Weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time. That's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Chris, the same strategy that was used to cause the U.S. Supreme Court to basically end affirmative action in college admissions is being used now to go after DEI programs and other programs that have historically provided some kind of advantage to minority-owned businesses. We're seeing programs run by the Transportation Department, programs run by the SBA, and other governmental industries or governmental departments, I should say, under attack from white business owners that are basically calling into question whether minority-owned businesses should receive any kind of advance with the ending of affirmative action. That DEI was next on the agenda. We saw that with respect to even the efforts to oust the president of Harvard, Claudine Gay, after the outrage over her statements to Congress became the outrage over the fact that she was, quote unquote, a DEI candidate. What do you make of this, and where might this lead us? And how do you see this playing into the election, if at all, next year?
Well, I mean, I think, one, it just goes to show how much is just at stake in next year's election. I feel like we say that all the time, but as long as we're still in the Donald Trump era, I feel like every election ups the ante a little bit more. Overall, it's disappointing. It's disheartening because and you knew when they went after DEI, just like when they went after the books, that's just the start to the greater narrative of things that they were going to come after. And so it's no surprise to see minority businesses coming under attack. I think we're still at a time in this nation right now where we're really battling for our soul and trying to figure out whether or not we're going to actually fully take a step forward and hopefully finally turn that final page on a lot of this stuff, or whether or not we're going to go back to policies that we saw in the 50s and the 60s of the most segregated America that we ever had.
Yeah, when you think about that, Professor, and then other news today is that Greg Abbott in Texas has officially passed a law that gives Texas, not federal, but Texas law enforcement officials the right to arrest migrants who enter the state from Mexico. We know this is setting up a showdown with the federal government, and there was pushback from Hispanic groups, Democrats, and immigrants' rights activists. But I want you to juxtapose that. You got a governor in Texas saying we are going to empower local law enforcement to wrestle control from federal law enforcement agencies to arrest migrants coming in from Mexico. We have attacks on DEI programs in corporate America, private entities, and now on the SBA and governmental industries that may have been giving some slight advantage to minority-owned businesses. And the biggest headline is that young folks aren't feeling Joe Biden. I mean, I'm just trying to understand how do we shake them and get them to realize if you are graduating college or you're graduating grad school and you're thinking about starting a business and you want a loan from SBA, it's under attack. Donald Trump will sign any bill that would probably end SBA lending altogether. Like, forget the disadvantaged business part of it. He just would probably just, with a one pen, wipe out SBA lending. Hispanic voters who are voting for Donald Trump, you can't even have your relatives, you can't go to Texas. So what is it that folks are missing about the danger of these Republicans, particularly young folks?
Uh, Areva, there's so much that can be said about people not voting in their interest, or people voting contrary to their interest, or people knowingly doing things that won't further their interest. Like, there's a lot to be said, but I think what we get lost in that conversation when I think what we're being shown is what is most important right now is Trumpism, and the ways in which it has come to um, in so many ways affirm republicanism, white nationalism, many of the things that had been taboo, many of the things that only were whispered about or talked about on the fringes. Now mass deportations are talked about as something that will be accomplished once President Trump is reelected. And so all the things that have been talked about, I feel, in terms of the right as possibilities, making, making deportation something that are realistic, making affirmative action something that is realistic, ending DEI something that is now possible with Trump and with the ways in which Republicans control state houses. And even in states like Oklahoma, where I am, we are feeling the brunts of the worst of Trumpism. And so that's what I feel like the culture has truly taken hold. And that has distorted what we think are people's interests.
Yeah, you're right. And definitely people will vote against their best interests. We've seen it throughout the ages. Nothing new there. But Chris, I guess I'm thinking that younger people in particular who have been motivated by this whole abortion fight, who we have seen turn out, and we have seen even white women, Republican women, motivated by this abortion fight. But this is so much bigger than just abortion. And when you think about the future of the country and what young people are going to be facing, again, I'm just trying to figure out what is the message that connects with them. It's so much. You're right, Dr. Hill. Every day this is all very new, right? Like Texas, well, it's not new. We know that Abbott has been trying his best to wrestle control from the federal government and take control of the immigration issue. He basically wants to break Texas off and make it its own country, it seems like. But why, Chris, every paper, every day, it's a poll out about young people just disenchanted with Biden. And there was another article that said Biden is disenchanted with the fact that people are disenchanted with him. So, it's just, where are we not connecting? What is this message? You worked grassroots with Democratic voters. What do we need to do?
Well, I think, again, when we're looking at the national scale, the Israel, Hamas, and just everything that has gone into that, how statements have been made, that is a wedge issue that younger voters, both millennial and Gen Z, just have not let go of. And I don't think that's a bone that's going to get let go of. And so when you talk about, where's the disconnect, or where can we get connected, I think it looking at some of those things in the midterms that young folks wanted to hear talked about, and talking about where there have already been successes. But then I also think there's this thing of getting back to civics 101, where you also have to explain, hey, here's why we need Congress again, and we don't just need the White House. And here's what we could actually get done if we have this, which we haven't had over the last 2 years. Look at what we've done when we've had power, and give us that power again. And I think that has to be made the case, other than just, the Republicans suck. We already know they suck. The thing with young folks, just as much as Black and brown folks, we've lived through so much crappy conditions. Overall, you got to give us another reason to be motivated to come out, because either way, we've known how to survive even through some of the worst conditions, and that's not enough to compel people sometimes to go vote.
I hear you. And, we do know things can get worse, like the elimination of, SBA lending, like the elimination of affirmative action, like the elimination of DEI. So there are things that this generation cannot even imagine. And I would, Professor Hill, you're a historian. I can imagine there's a right terror that's a dictator like Donald Trump can bring onto this for a country like the U.S. We got about 30 seconds. Help us understand how much worse this can get.
Well, I mean, and when you think about where we have been, a country that has excluded racial minorities systematically, the kind of racial violence, the terror that has went along with that. If we have a president who panders to that, who is in any way supportive of that, and in some ways is pushing us back there, we just have to say no, because if we're beginning to say no against affirmative action, now against diversity, equity, and inclusion, the very culture that helped us to remove segregation, disenfranchisement, and we replace that with the culture of equity, diversity, and inclusion. If we're removing that, well, what are we replacing it with? That's the fundamental question that we got to ask ourselves. If they say we can't talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, what better are you giving us to replace that with? And the answer is nothing. And so that's
well, what white folks are saying, what we need to talk about is their rights, that they have been denied their rights in this effort to right the wrongs of slavery and the vestiges of slavery. So big conversation. Thank you so much, Professor Hill. Always a pleasure to have you join me. Thank you also, Chris Scott. When we come forward, we're going to talk about that nuclear verdict against Rudy Giuliani. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas,